Hey y'all, Nickie Brown here. No matter where you are and what part of the world you're in, I hope that you're having a good day. I just wanted to say this real quick. When people don't understand you, they have a tendency to call you crazy or some other name that really does not fit who you are. And that's a problem. Um, that we have a tendency to resort to name calling and dishonoring one another because we don't understand, or even yelling and screaming at each other, saying someone's stupid, or saying that they don't know what they're talking about, trying to discredit them. And men are definitely good at doing that for women. And yes, women do it too, but I feel like overall, men have a tendency to do that more so than women. Um, and anger is an emotion, and name calling is a childish way of dealing with those emotions. And I like to call it an adult temper tantrum, which is not necessarily name calling, but it is pointing out the behavior. Um, because name calling is childish. Or even, not being able to calmly have a conversation um, is also childish. I feel like, I don't know, whenever I hear men um, screaming to the top of their lungs at a woman or trying to belittle her, um, it gives me he was raised by a single mother vibe. And he was never taught how to balance out that energy and communicate effectively. And again, this is not me name calling. This is me pointing out the behavior from a psychological perspective. Because although we're a balance of masculine and feminine energy, overall, that's something that's more feminine in nature than masculine. And we should really all learn how to balance out those energies within us. And again, communicate effectively. If we don't like what someone said, we should be able to say that. Well, that doesn't make sense to me, or I don't understand what you're trying to say, or that didn't make me feel good, or that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Well, oh, you so stupid. You don't even know what you're talking about. Oh, but then if the person reacts, because there's always cause and effect, right? If the person reacts in a way that you consider unfavorable, then they're the problem. Almost as if to say they're just supposed to put up with your foolishness because you disagree with what they said or you didn't like what they said, right? Recently, and I don't even know what I said. I was just sharing good news, um, things are going well. And so even if it's good news that you're sharing, right? If in this person's mind they're jealous, they're intimidated, they're envious, it will still upset them, right? And you've done nothing wrong, right? You would think that certain people would be happy for you that you're sharing good news. But because they feel like they want to compare themselves to you and they wish they had the life you had, when you share good news, it makes them angry, right? So I'm on the phone with someone and, we talk for a while, probably at least an hour, if not two, right? And we said our goodbyes. And as the person was hanging up the phone, now this person lives alone, right? So there's no one else around that you could be saying this to. And if we just had an hour, 2 hour conversation, you couldn't have been attentively listening to or watching something on television, right? So clearly this was directed toward me, right? So as we're, like I said, we said our goodbyes, we're hanging up the phone. This person says, fuck you, right? Didn't think that I heard the person. The person didn't think I heard them. Or they don't know that I heard them. I don't know if the person, you know, to this day, this person may not know that I heard them, or they could have figured it out, right? But what gives you the right to disrespect someone because you disagree with what they said instead of simply saying, again, well, that made me feel uncomfortable. That didn't make me feel good. Or even if you jokingly say, and we all know that in every joke there's a bit of truth, even if you jokingly say, oh, I wish I was in your shoes. But then some people won't say anything like that because they don't want you to feel like, you know, you're better than them. But in the meantime, that's usually what they're thinking, right? They're projecting onto you what they're actually thinking. Because 9 times out of 10, the person that you think that about doesn't think that about themselves, right? Because everyone has low self esteem. Now, there are some people who are arrogant and have a big ego. Don't get me wrong, I am aware of that. But usually, the arrogance and big ego still stems from some type of low self esteem. Something that they're not confident about, right? Whether it's consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously. Like, for example, people who feel like they have to get good grades or they have to be the best at everything. Oftentimes, those people are seeking validation because they didn't get the amount of gratification or validation that they needed growing up. Because keep in mind, we all have a different love language, right? So if a person grows up in a household, let's say their parents are together, right? Parents are together, they received love, more love, say, from their mom than their dad. Say the dad worked all the time, and maybe he spent time with the child, when he was home, but, for the most part, he slept all the time, and, he wasn't around much, right? Um, maybe they watched a 30-minute show together and then that was about it. He was sleeping or whatever, you know, resting. And maybe his or her love language is quality time, right? So although the mother was loving, the father didn't give them that quality time. So now this person does not have that balance. And when we talk about an absent parent, we could mean physically absent or emotionally unavailable. Still, there's a void there, right? Because a parent can be physically present and male or female still be emotionally unavailable and unattentive to this child's needs, right? So then this child grows up seeking validation. Or maybe you have a parent where all they felt like is, oh, well, as long as the bills are paid and you eat and you got clothes on your back, I don't have to do anything else. So they never said encouraging words. You're doing a good job. I'm proud of you, right? And so if this person's love language is words of affirmation and all they got was gifts and money and go sit down somewhere and leave me alone, then again, there's a portion of this person that needs to fill a void and needs validation. You also have situations where there was a step parent involved, and the step parent treated the kid like a stepchild, right? Maybe was abusive in some way, verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, even when, especially when the other parent was not around. And then they would lie to the other parent and say, oh, that didn't happen, I didn't do that, they're just a child, acting out. I know for someone I know, his stepmom used to hide food. Um, some children have very healthy appetites, right? And they don't intentionally mean to eat up the food, but that's what they do. I know when I was raising my son, he had a very healthy appetite. And I just had to provide accordingly, right? But you can't get mad at a child because they want to eat or drink a lot. Or it could be some issue going on within that child, and that could be a sign of that issue. Why does this child want to overeat? Um, you know, but that's a whole nother topic. I'm not even going to get into that. But again, the issues that we have during childhood manifest themselves in adulthood as adult temper tantrums, gossip, lying, belittling people, being jealous, being envious. Right? And I still owe you a video about jealousy. I'm still getting my talking points together. This one was off the top of my head, right? I just spontaneously, well, when in the course of human events, right? Usually it comes from somewhere. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I wasn't going to say anything at first, but I'm just going to be honest. This conversation actually came from me hearing my neighbor screaming to the top of his lungs at the mother of his child. And this happens off and on. And when I say screaming to the top of his lungs, I mean literally at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, you're screaming as if she's your child. And you may not like what a person does. You may not like what a person says. You may not like the way that they behave, but you're not their parent. And even a parent should be able to control their emotions and not scream at the top of their lungs. And this is coming from a parent who was parenting. Hey, my phone overheated. So I was saying that this is coming from someone who yelled at her child because I repeated the same behavior that was done to me growing up because I didn't know until later on in the parenting process that there was a better way to do it. I just did what was done to me. But again, if you pay attention, children can teach you things, whether it's directly or indirectly. The phone is going to overheat again, so I'm going to keep this short. But yeah, there's a better way to handle things. We don't have to yell. We don't have to curse. We don't have to call people names or belittle them in other ways in order to effectively communicate and get our point across and be heard. Because a lot of times that's what it is, a fight to be heard. People want to know that what they're saying matters and means something to the person they're communicating with. And if they feel like somebody's not listening, they feel like they have to raise their voice in order to get their point across. But that doesn't work. It usually doesn't work. And if anything, it'll make the person that you're yelling at rebel against what you're saying and not even listen to you. Half the time they can't even hear you. When you're screaming at someone, they cannot hear you. They're just taking on the emotion of you attacking them. They're not really receiving what you're saying. So there is a better way to say it so that it is received and that you actually get the result that you're looking for, as opposed to just, throwing, what do they say, throwing the paint up against the wall and seeing what sticks, or whatever, however that saying goes. You want it to be effective communication, not just throw something at the wall to see what sticks. So that's it. Like I said, this phone is starting to overheat, so I don't want it to cut off again. But I hope that this was helpful. And as always, I love y'all. Later. Mwah.